Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. And this week, some thoughts on Yamaha guitars. So if you spend much time perusing guitar videos on YouTube, odds on you will have noticed that Yamaha guitars, and specifically the Yamaha Revstar, has been something of a hot topic in recent weeks, primarily in the wake of a video that a mate of mine, Rhett, made, speculating as to why he thought Yamaha guitars aren't more popular. Now, Rhett referenced me in that video, was one of the more prominent Revstar players, as did a lot of the comments on that video, as did a lot of comments on Instagram, as did every single person that sent me a link to that video in the last fortnight or so. In some respects, it's been absolutely inescapable, with lots of people asking me if I had an opinion on the situation. Not as much as it did briefly cross my mind as to whether I should maybe leave a comment in response or weigh in with any kind of opinions or thoughts on the subject. As I said the last time I made a video specifically about the Revstar, some 5 or so years ago, believe it or not, I find it very hard to talk about this guitar with any level of objectivity or impartiality. I make no bounds about the fact that since I became a Yamaha artist in, I think, late 2016, they have been incredibly kind and supportive, not just with guitars and the like, but in my development as a musician, and crucially the development of Cardinal Black as well, even going so far as to sponsor our Abbey Road Studio 2 session that you just saw at the start of today's video. As such, I'm not really the person to be offering any opinions on why someone feels that a guitar as good as the Revstar isn't more popular than it maybe is. I'm too close to the subject, I'm too close to the situation, and frankly, I'm not in marketing, I'm not a guitar builder, I'm not a manufacturer, I'm not a distributor, I'm just a guitar player that has been playing these guitars for the last 6 or 7 or so years, and I guess as such, the only thing that I can really attempt to speak on with any level of authenticity or anything approaching authority is why I like them so much. A caveat emptor, whenever anyone on YouTube tries to speak candidly about a company that they have any kind of affiliation or association with, they're inevitably met by a barrage of skepticism in regard to the transparency or the legitimacy of their words, and honestly, I totally get it. So it is entirely your prerogative should you choose to disregard everything I'm about to say, but what I would highlight is that when it comes to relationship with brands or companies, is that it is very important that it's a two-way street. If you're jumping into bed with a company or looking to endorse a product because you feel like it'll equate to free gear or it might be a lucrative relationship, it will honestly end in tears. And as such, I've always been very keen to highlight that my relationship with Yamaha flourished entirely as a consequence of my love of the Revstar. Came across them in PMT, a music shop in Cardiff, when they were released back in, I think, 2015, and honestly just fell in love with them. I tried quite a few in the shop at the time, and kind of thinking back to my thoughts and feelings in that moment, the first thing I noticed was the neck carve. I thought it was incredibly comfortable and kind of familiar in a strange way, but at the same time, I thought the ergonomics of the design were incredibly intuitive, and it was very simple and very straightforward to play. Couple that with the stock P90 sounding very, very good. I'm not someone that's easily impressed either when it comes to P90s, as someone that's kind of been burdened with knowledge and experience of some very cool, very old 1950s Gibsons. I'm a little bit difficult to please in that respect. But honestly, above anything else, I thought it just looked very cool. We're kidding ourselves, honestly, if we say that the aesthetics of a guitar don't play an incredibly important part when it comes to our initial response to an instrument. It might have been the best guitar in the world, but if it hadn't looked cool, I never would have found out because I probably wouldn't have picked it up in the first place. Aside from just looking cool, I thought it was actually quite interesting to see a brand new guitar whose inspiration wasn't derived from one of the classic shapes. It wasn't obviously influenced by a Strat or a Tele or a Les Paul or any of those kind of classic influences when it comes to new guitar designs. At the same time, it undoubtedly had echoes of Yamaha's own guitar heritage, whether it's the SG series. I've got an old SG 2000 I've talked about and used on the channel in the past, which I absolutely love, or I guess more specifically the Superflighter as well from the 70s, which is very much where the Revstar's rough shape has come from. It was just a very interesting, very new guitar that really piqued my interest, and as such my relationship with Yamaha flourished as a consequence, as opposed to the other way round. I've read lots of comments over the years in regard to the Revstars that I've used have only ever been custom models or upgraded in some way, shape or form, but again, I think it's important to highlight that undoubtedly the Revstar that I played the most before Yamaha were kind enough to build me my custom shop was an entirely stock Indonesian-made black RS502. They don't make them anymore, but at the time this would have set you back about £500 give or take, so not really an expensive guitar in any respect, and it's one that still serves as the backup guitar for my Gold Top. It's just a staggeringly good instrument, honestly. It's resonant, it has a voice of its own, and has played an incredibly important part in my guitar rig for the last few years. So speaking of that custom shop Gold Top, obviously I made a specific video about that guitar when I first took delivery of it way back in 2020 when I collected it out in Anaheim in California, but given the time that's elapsed, everything that's happened in the world since, and all of the shows and gigs and tours that I've done with that guitar, I thought it'd be worth a little bit of an update. But in all honesty, it's not really a great deal to update you on. I think it's testament to how much I love that guitar and how perfect it's been for me. I've not really had to do anything to it, save for a couple of different changes of pickups. But honestly, that is primarily down to my kind of never-ending quest for the perfect set of P90s. It's had some Lollas in there over time, it's had some radio shops, and at present it has a set of Sunbears. And in all honesty, it is sounding and looking particularly sweet at the moment. That was one of my main stipulations when it came to specking this guitar with the custom shop, was that it was finished in nitrocellulose, which I love primarily for the fact that it ages commensurately with you. And looking at the guitar now, it's very cool to see that it's starting to reflect just how much I use this guitar, not only with paint wearing off on the top part where my arm is rubbing across it, but also actually paint wearing off around the volume control as well, where again my kind of hand is just constantly in friction with the paintwork. It really bears witness to everywhere it's been and everything that I've put this guitar through, which I think is a particularly cool feature of nitrocellulose. I'm not overly sentimental when it comes to guitars. I don't give them names, and I've always been fairly candid about seeing them primarily as tools, but arguably more so than any other guitar I've ever had. Maybe say for my Highway 1 Strat, come to think of it, which I played for years and years as well. This kind of feels like my guitar. It's very much an extension of my playing style, and as much as an inanimate object has the capacity to do so, kind of feels like it's been malleable to my idiosyncrasies as opposed to the other way round. Overly sentimentalized nonsense, more than likely, but whatever the reason, this guitar feels like a piece of me. Finally, and something which I guess I've only fleetingly referenced in the past, is that the Revstar will forever hold a special place in my heart as a guitar that I honestly feel helped me find my feet and helped me find my voice as a musician and my identity. Having come from primarily a Strat playing background, especially in recent years, something I was becoming hyper aware of, I guess, to a degree, for better or for worse, is that when a guitar such as a Strat has such a defined character and voice and identity, it can actually hinder you finding your own. And if you play music which is at all rooted in the blues, as I do, playing a Strat is such a well-trodden path that people are very quick to categorise or compartmentalise your sound and your tone. And I guess picking up a new guitar with arguably less history and less baggage possibly, really allowed me to find my feet and not just walk in other people's shoes. At a time when the guitar is undoubtedly experiencing something of resurgence in regard to its context or the prominence of its role in popular music especially, I think having a chance to really put my stamp on a guitar or a design and become, hopefully, indelibly associated with it in some way, shape or form is such a cool, such a unique and liberating experience. And honestly, it's something I really enjoy. Maybe that speaks to an ego within myself, I don't know. I'm not going to analyse that too much for fear of disappearing down a rabbit hole. But ultimately, if certain people feel that the Revstar isn't as popular as it maybe should be or as popular as it will inevitably become in years to come, I would say that, relatively speaking, it is still a very new guitar design. As guitar players, we can be somewhat guilty of being a little bit conservative when it comes to our instrument choices, and we tend to gravitate towards the shapes and the guitars that have been in our subconscious for a very long time, years and years. So maybe it just will take a little bit of time for the Revstar to permeate into our consciousness as not just an alternative, as a perfectly viable alternative to all of those classic guitars, but as a great guitar in its own right. And if I can help with that in some small way, shape or form, then more power to it. And that's all I've got to say about that. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching Friday Fretworks. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already. And I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers, guys. Take care. See you soon.